Hey, this is Carrie with Carrie Concealed in the Active Self-Protection Extra channel. And today I have an amazing friend of mine, an amazing guest, Mr. Chris Bean, and we are going to ask him the instructor insider questions when we come back.
Mr. Target is the sponsor of today's video. If you're looking for excellently engineered steel targets that will withstand thousands and thousands of pistol, rifle, or shotgun rounds, Mr. Target is my go-to resource. They've got self-sealing rubber targets too, and you can see us use them all the time on the Active Self-Protection Extra YouTube channel. Hit the link in the description to check Mr. Target out, and be sure to thank them for sponsoring today's video.
All right, welcome back. All right, Mr. Chris. So tell us a bit about yourself and the type of teaching that you do.
Okay. So my name's Christopher Bean. I am the normal run-of-the-mill middle-aged male. Um, I am a father of one. I've been married to my wife for 25 years or ish or so. Don't quote me on that or hold me to that as gospel. Um, the type of teaching I do. So I kind of specialize in the mental aspects of performance. That's what at least I'm most passionate about. Um, I've taken quite a bit of time trying to understand mechanical aspects of shooting and things like that, but I guess I devote most of my time now to understand why we're doing the things we're doing versus how we're doing the things we're doing, if that makes any sense.
Definitely makes sense. And you have more training than anyone I know. Anyone I know. You have like what, four, if not five times the amount of training hours that I have. That's a lot of training, my friend. And that's one of the things I admire about you is your commitment to excellence and to figuring out the things you want to figure out.
Yeah, I have made some poor fiscal decisions in regards to chasing down rabbit holes to understand, I guess. That's one way to put it.
I like that. All right. Question number two. What is your favorite type of student to teach?
Hmm. So let me think about that for a second. I think it really falls into like a bucket. So I like these students that know that something is creating adversity for themselves, but they might not be able to recognize what that is. Those are the people that I really enjoy working with because I don't profess to have answers.
Yeah.
The answers that are created are derived from what's presented to me or the client that I'm working with, and it's client specific. So those people that actually come knowing that they can do more, they're just not how to do that yet. Those are the people that get me especially intrigued. They're not coming just to put something in their book bag of accomplishments or things like that. It's more about going, I'm not 100% sure how to approach this. What do you think? That's what brings me to the table and gets me just hyper engaged, trying to find the solution for them, not the solution that I preordained as being correct before I had any of the information.
Yeah. That makes you so unique in this space too. Your willingness to see each learner or every single person in your class as an individual with an individual, uh, not a problem to solve, but with an individual puzzle to figure out. And I just love it when I tell people we've had ASPIC students before that have been in our instructor certification program together, and they might reach out and say, "Hey, I've kind of hit a plateau in my shooting." And I'll say, "Well, you need to book a private session with Chris Bean. You just have to do it." And then my favorite is when I always can tell when they've done that because I get a text message from them, usually with a picture of a shot timer, saying, "Look, he helped me do it. We did it," which is really awesome. The results you're able to get is really inspiring to see.
Well, and I don't want to take credit for that because that's collaborative, right?
Yes,
These
yes.
aren't my wins, and that's why I kind of like that form of explorer, I
Yeah,
guess, for lack of a better way to put it, because they're engaged in figuring it out and engaged in trying new things versus going, and you know how this is, somebody that you're trying to teach being like, well, I was taught this way, and this is obviously the right and only way.
right.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe not, but how do you know
Yeah.
until you try and just explore it a little bit? So yeah, that kind of stuff makes me happy, and it makes me incredibly prideful that I'm able to help people.
Oh,
That's really the return on investment for me.
yeah. And I
That
know what you mean. You don't want to take credit for it. You definitely, and I feel the same way about things like that. You definitely are part of their solution. Obviously, they couldn't get where they were before they came to you on their own. They had people help them get there, and then they're with you because they want your help. And together, those solutions you guys are able to find, it's really, really inspiring to see.
yeah, and it works out normally pretty well, you know. So,
Yes. And we don't have to worry about the ones when it doesn't. They're so few and far between. I mean, really, yeah. I can't
well,
even
normally I'm
imagine.
hard-headed and I'll bird dog it until I can figure it out. So
Yes, yes. All right. What led you to consider the active self-protection instructor certification? So you were in cohort 2, which was a while ago.
yeah,
What
it's
led
been
you
a
to
bit.
consider doing it?
So I guess for me, uh, that's quite introspective actually to kind of go back and think about it. But what led me to the program is I've been instructing or had been instructing at that time uh, already for a full career.
Yeah,
And and there were some certain things that I thought that I felt I was isolated in or just different, or why do I care about these things so deeply and why does no one else care about these things so deeply? So I was kind of on this journey to find something that was different in that regard that made me feel like, okay, I'm not the only individual that thinks this way.
yeah.
So I would seek it out, and my exposure to John and the active self-protection, you know, brand,
Hmm.
I was like, he says some things that kind of lend themselves to how I think about things academically
Yeah,
or systematically. And it made me kind of interested in the program. And, you know, that really it, just going, why does no one in this industry or very few people actually care about the craft?
right.
Why is that so? And
Yeah.
am I really the only one? You know?
Because it
Um,
feels like it.
it does, and it's incredibly alienating when someone realizes that there's more to the craft, and there's very few avenues to explore that where you have eh, a supportive environment to actually explore it
Yeah,
and understand the meaning of craft and prowess and all of these things and what that means. Um, it's unfortunate, but that it's just okay, you can shoot well. You've taken this class over a weekend. Go be free. Go talk to people about life-saving or life-ending skills. Enjoy. Um, where for me, it's much deeper than that. And I'm not trying to be like existential or anything, but I have
I get it.
always been like that, where
Yep.
it's almost obsessive in nature, about understanding things.
Yeah.
Um, so when I found this, it was as advertised, incredibly different. It was a much more supportive environment than I anticipated, and it made me
Yeah.
feel and reignite my passion for doing this because I was literally on the edge of going, why am I wasting my time? Like, I obviously do not belong in this, you know?
Yeah.
And it provided me kind of an off ramp of that highway of discontent to actually embrace kind of what I believe is relatively unique, or at least not as popular as it should be.
Yeah, no, I agree. And yeah, not only is the type of teaching you do not popular or not common in this space, it isn't common in most spaces, which is something I've become really aware of over this last year. And it is a bit sad,
It
honestly.
is.
I mean, because people thrive in, uh, um, I'll go into it later. This isn't the place for it, but just through methods of instruction that we did earlier this year, and then the Force Science Advanced, just talking about the difference between behavioral training and decision training. And I firmly believe there are people like you who are a decision trainer. It's just who you are, and that's desirable. That's what we want. That's what gets lasting results. Most people are behavioral trainers because that's what they've seen and that's what they've had modeled. And so they model their training after that. But I hope to do a video. We should collaborate on that sometime because I think there's just some clues or tips, just a different way to look at things with just a different lens sometimes can help people change the type of training that they offer and the way they explain things because it's not that hard, really.
No, it's and for everyone that's watching this, understand the nature of conversations that Carrie and I have. Like if we have like a format, this is what's going to happen. But I think what happens, and I'm not saying this as a negative, I think it's become more prevalent in instruction or teaching that we want to teach people a system of steps to perform a task. We want to foster the ability to emulate, not the ability to understand. And I think that's the huge failure. Like what I want to do, I don't want to tell anyone if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, this, and this will happen. I want to tell them, hey, these are things that can happen, and this is the end state you want. So let's choose the path that gets us there quicker
Yeah. Yeah.
with less investment, less work. Um, and I think in some circles of academia, that's becoming more used because that's honestly, if we're really going to nerd out, the Socratic method where all of this started
Yep.
that way. And
Nothing new under the sun.
somehow we took a left turn and said, hey, there's this test. And if we teach people how to fill in the B bubble, everyone will be good at stuff. And it's just not that way.
And we
But
have centuries of understanding that it, and now in modern society, we have decades of understanding that it isn't best that way, especially for long-term, retention and transfer, which is the hard stuff.
Bye.
All right. So what are your three favorite things, or what are three favorite things about your ASPIC experience?
Hmm. Well, I guess first and foremost, I met some people that are truly important to me, like truly, that have become or transcended friendship.
Mhm.
Um,
Well said.
and I'm kind of a hard dude to handle, so that was incredibly important to me and something that it was just a gift that was given, not one that
Yeah.
was requested. So that was the biggest one. Two, um, I kind of discovered that I'm not the only one that's passionate about this or passionate that it could be better, I guess. And I don't say that in a way that I'm trying to disparage
Well, I
others
know.
or
I know.
anything like that. It's just that we could as a industry or vocation do more
Yeah.
and do it more effectively for people and for the right reasons.
Yes.
And let me see last. Let me see. I guess it gave me some legs too, because when you feel differently
Yeah.
or isolated in yourself, the initial thing one would want to do is feel like they're not worthy or they're so different that it's just not okay, right? And when you're in a bubble, that tends to be intrusive thoughts for people,
Right.
right?
Right.
And in being exposed to other people from varying skill levels, varying levels of success, all astute and all learned individuals, and actually to be told in confidence and in public that you are actually really good at something,
Yeah.
it's life changing.
Yeah.
It can change outlook. And the most interesting part for me about that is the people that do that, the very best I've met,
Mm.
don't know they're doing it
Right.
and
Right.
don't do it for any kind of recognition. It's just part of who they are. And That's interesting, right? So
And thank goodness for him. I'd be lost without him. You just get to the point where it's, I don't know if you got this. I just was like, why even try? I would hide if ever I took an instructor class. I wouldn't talk about how I actually taught things. I learned right away. Don't talk about that because that's not the way everybody else does it. And it's gonna, and I didn't do it different for the sake of doing it different. It's because
no,
the people I was working with needed something different. They would not have done well in the traditional method that it's taught. And I just kept saying over and over, if we're going to keep our firearm, if we're going to keep the ability to protect ourselves, then more families have to get involved. And it just wasn't a welcoming place 20 years ago.
yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with if you don't represent the status quo, that you can't possibly be effective. And I think where the flaw in the thinking is they're not looking at the outcome as the measure. They're looking at
Well,
uh, how people are perceiving them
yeah,
as the measure of success. And gosh, this is going to sound so bad, and I don't mean it to. I honestly don't care if people think I'm great at this.
right,
What I care about is you being great at this.
right.
And that is truly my only inspiration. And it's tough. It's a tough business because what people want to do is they've seen something work and they forget their own uniqueness and they say,
Mhm.
well, if I do it just like that person, all will be well in the world. Everyone will respect me. They'll have ticker tape parades going, what a great firearms instructor. Um, and it leaves so much undiscovered
Yeah.
and not for the student alone, for them as well. Like there's so much that everyone's unique ability to think through things can bring to the table. And if you're just allowed to do that,
Yes. Yeah.
the things that can happen, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And the people that can be reached. And yeah, that's a good point. If we just allow it to happen, yeah, and create a safe space for it, which you do a masterful job in ASPIC doing that as a leader of ASPIC. Okay, so in your eyes, what are some essential qualities of an outstanding trainer?
Hmm. I guess the first one being empathy, um, being able to understand really what people are going through. I think that also gets lost a lot of times where um, more often than not, the people that are coming to us are damaged in
Yeah.
some way, whatever way that is. And it is not our place to define that. It's our place to respect it
Yes.
and then figure out what we can do to make that less impactful. It's not about the gun. It's not how fast you can draw the gun. It's not how fast you can do a bill drill. It's how confident are you if you ever needed to use any of these skills in a situation where, God forbid, the last voice you hear in your head is mine.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
want
man.
it to be one that gets you where you need to go.
Yeah.
So
Well
that's the
said.
first one.
Yeah.
Empathetic. Two, put in the work to be good at what you do. Be a student of the craft. I'm not saying you have to be the best shooter in the world. I'm not saying you have to be the best teacher in the world, but it is grossly obvious when people are neither of those.
Mm, so true.
Grossly obvious. And that's, I guess, the end game for me to kind of discuss that with people is it is the most serious subject matter one could have. You know, it's
Yeah.
akin to doing this in a military application, except the people that are coming to us are not seasoned soldiers. They
And they
are
don't have a
regular
platoon or a
people.
battalion.
Yeah, they are regular people.
Yeah.
Treat it with the respect it deserves because it deserves immense respect.
Yeah.
Immense.
Yeah.
So, and I got to think of one more. Was that two or was that three?
It was good. It was so good. You can stop there if you want, or I'd love to
I
listen to another
I
one.
could think of another one. I just got to think for a second. Hold on, let me get some coffee.
Take
Maybe
your
I'll fix it.
time.
So third, I think people that are infinitely willing to change,
Mm,
infinitely willing to adapt and analyze what they've done and recognize if it's not exactly what they wanted. I think that's another trait that's super important. It is absolutely okay to scrap something or change it in the name of overall improvement.
yeah.
You know, being willing to be in a constant state of change, because that is what we're asking other people to do.
Mm,
So if somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, I what I'm doing is not working. Please help me figure out what to do to make it work," and we're inflexible, it,
well
we're
said. Well said. So
so I,
true.
yeah, I think all of those things, just in all of those things, especially if you approach with intensity, they make other things difficult. You know,
Yeah.
if you're constantly evaluating what you're doing, you're constantly trying to understand the client base that you're working with, you're constantly trying to explore, um, it turns it into a grind. It's a
Yeah.
job,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but if the right person finds that, it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
You just have to want it.
Yeah. Oh, well said, my friend. Well said. All right. What is next for you in your instructor journey?
So just activity or learning?
Either.
Well, so this is an interesting one. I haven't really publicized this, but from a working kind of aspect.
Mm,
So I decided to retire from my corporate career in the summer of 2024 and focus predominantly on teaching and doing what I do in the defensive space. So that comes with some interesting opportunities and some
sure.
concerns, right?
Sure.
But this year, kind of what I'm doing a lot of is actually being more involved in the active self-protection offerings of training with myself, Neil, John,
Awesome.
Step, you, all the other players. So that's a big piece of what I've got coming up in 2025. Also trying to kind of get a little more or coax myself to be a little more available from a social media or kind of aspect, because I'm an intensely private person,
Yeah.
intensely private. So trying to get out there a little bit more to kind of expose myself to a larger group of people to see whom I can help. So uh, there'll be some stuff for like my personal company, Tactical Advantage. I'm kind of playing around with some offerings that I'm thinking about adding there, where I believe there are holes in the industry
Yeah.
that I think I might could fit, but
Wow.
I'll see how that works. But from
That's
a
exciting.
yeah, from a learning perspective, the biggest one I'm trying to go after this year, and I think you'll appreciate this because you've heard me kind of articulate thought on this stuff, but dive deep into the anatomy side of that, and I mean literal anatomy, like human body inner workings, because I've done just a pretty significant amount of like neuro related kind of thought processes, decision making, things like that. But what I found really interesting the last couple months is every thought or synapse that's triggering an action is like a multi-step program of the body. So a trigger finger pull could have 8, 10, 12 different things firing to make that happen. What is the true chain? And
So
how do you know where in the chain something's gone wrong? And I think to understand that, one has to be a student of how the body really works. And I don't mean from a cursory remedial level, I mean
right.
a deep understanding level. So
Wow.
that's kind of what I've been digging into lately is, you know, every muscle tendon of the hand, where is it driven by? What nerve in the spine starts it, blah, 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 what part of the brain is really driving that? And then start trying to understand, is it mechanical or is it behavioral?
Wow.
Because, well, behavioral stuff is what your body does more often than not is 100% driven by behaviors, not actual mechanics. So all of those things, when you put those two, and I'm just a nerd
Wow.
that can't be helped. So
I can't wait to learn more about this through you.
I can't wait to learn more about it myself. But
That's
oh
good.
yeah, I'm just a nerd. It's okay.
It's more than okay. It's awesome. All right. Last question for you. What rabbit hole or passion are you chasing now, or one that you're looking forward to in the future?
Well, we kind of just covered that one.
Thought you were going to say that.
But that's kind of the biggest one for me. And in the future, maybe trying to better understand. I guess so. Really, I think the way I think about things is not 100% just related to shooting. It's related to a whole myriad of things. So, continuing to try and understand what it is that I do and how I do it, and see how I can apply that to other opportunities for coaching. Not
Oh,
looking to branch out as a life coach or anything.
no.
That's not my intent. But I think all things and all abilities are useful in multiple realms. And just figure out, like, hey, if someone, a golf swing, a tennis swing, a run somewhere thing. Okay, how do these things all apply? So really, I guess my rabbit hole is putting it all together
Yeah.
and understanding how it applies to everything. So,
Wow.
small goal,
Yeah.
but
I can't wait to see you work with all that. I can't wait to see you work with a student with all that knowledge that you're gaining in this area. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be good stuff. Well, Mr. Chris, thank you very much for your time today. And thanks for letting us ask you the ASPIC graduate questions.
anytime. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.